What are your craziest babysitter stories? Either with you being the babysitter or the baby. I'll go first. One time, when I was 12, I caught my babysitter, who was probably 17 at the time, smoking a joint. I had no idea it was pot. I just thought it was a funny looking cigarette. Anyway, she told me not to tell my mom, but I just stared at her blankly. Then she got really red in the face and nervously said, "If you promise not to tell anyone, I'll let you see my boobs." I got all excited and embarrassed and bashfully agreed. I've told many of my friends throughout the years, so I ended up breaking the promise. A neighbor from up the street used to babysit me when I was like 8. He was probably 1516 at the time. When he realized I liked computers and video games, he introduced me to and gave me Command and Conquer, and later when it came out, Red Alert. He would bring his computer over and we would play multiplayer over a null modem cable. If I won, I got to stay up later for each game I won, past the bedtime my parents set, and if he won I'd have to help him with his chores when he watched me at his house. I learned damn quick how to beat him after he made me wash his parents' cars and do dishes. I stopped going to bed on time and he would have me play on his team to kick his friends' asses. I was so waiting for, and if he won, I would have to suck his penis. Some babysitter who didn't speak much English, and apparently couldn't really read much either, gave my sister wine or maybe alcoholic cider because it was in a plastic container in the fridge and she thought it was apple juice. Sister was probably about 3 or 4. Fuck, my parents told me similar from when I was a kid. A friend of my granddad used to brew his own drink, beer, cider, poitín, that sort of thing, and stopped by my grandparents' house with a jug of cider. My granny doesn't drink at all, so he thought it'd be a laugh to tell her that it was apple juice to get her to try some. She didn't, but after he left, she thought, "Hey, Sevier loves apple juice, I'll let him have some." My parents caught on shortly after they'd collected me from her house. The fact that I was swearing at strangers in the supermarket apparently gave it away. When I was about 12 or 13, I was babysitting for a neighbor. They had a 9-year-old son and a 7-year-old daughter. I usually played around with the son, as he was just old enough to not feel like I was humoring a little kid. The little sister would just tag along. For some reason, she had a fit that day that I never played with her. I felt bad, as I was kind of ignoring her, and didn't want her to tell her parents that I didn't dole out the play fairly, so I decided to play dolls with her. He brother got mad, and starting having a little fit about it. I rolled my eyes at him, told him he wasn't a baby and could handle me playing with his sister, and went into her room because she wanted to play with a big dollhouse that was in there. I play with her for a couple minutes, then hear the son's footsteps stop in the hall in front of the open door. I turn around, expecting to end up rolling my eyes at him again. He is holding an axe, a little one, Boy Scouts I think, and looks very mad. I reflexively close the door, and hold it shut. He starts hacking at the door. I have my back up against it, holding it shut, and keep imagining him hacking all the way through it into my back. I am screaming and crying for him to please stop. I will play with him. I am sorry, please. His parents came home with amazing timing right about then. He runs into his own room, and I run downstairs to them as quickly as I can. Told them what happened, etc. I wonder what happened to him. My babysitter let me play with her boobs when I was 8 or so. I'm not talking about a quick touchy-feely either. She let me handle those suckers, bra off and everything. She had known me since I was a baby, and I don't know if that makes it more weird or less weird. Edit, accidentally a word. So the moral of the story here with all these posts is that guy babysitters are cool, but girls have boobs. I really needed money, so I accepted to babysit some kid few blocks away. His parents were abusive and insulted me whenever possible, but still I kept the job just to get money. Last week of my job I started hiddenly taking a shit in their attic. The parents probably thought their kid shit in the attic and beat him mercilessly. As a male babysitter, I can honestly say the most awkward thing was when their parents came home to me, laying down on the ground playing their Xbox 360, while their 8-year-old son was sitting on top of my back, thumping a rubber bat on my head every time I got killed in the game. When I was 11 or 12 I had a female babysitter 15 who was on the odd side. She was kinda weird, always a little off, looked at things differently. One night we're watching MTV and one of the girly videos was playing and she noticed something growing down there. After some talking I let her see it and touch it. Seemed she had never seen a penis erect and was very curious. Felt weird, but good. Next visit she bragged over a movie, a porn she swiped from her parents. Long story short, we tried everything in the movie. Thanks to my parents' fondness for drinking on Saturday night and Friday night, the babysitter's willingness to watch me, and some batshit hormones, I had sex with her like 10,000 times or so over the next month. Yeah, literally as soon as my parents pulled out of the driveway we would start. Oh yeah, and neither one of us knew shit about condoms. Then one night my parents literally barge in the door half drunk and in balls deep in heather on the couch. Got real after that. Her parents came over, questioned us about how many times, who initiated it, and if I came in her. Our answers horrified them to the core. They left and I never saw her again. My mom called her mom a week later to see if she was pregnant. No. That was a tough year punishment wise for me. Years later I would learn that my father bragged about the whole incident to his buddies with great pride. One guy even shoved a beer in my hand at a cookout when I was 15, stating I was a man among men. Edit: my parents never talked about sex or sex ed. I knew condoms existed, but my parents didn't use them and I couldn't buy them. When I say the girl was different, I mean really not too smart, not special but not normal either. It took about 10 times to get the whole sex thing right. I was closer to 12. My parents just felt guilty leaving me home alone. It wasn't all peaches and cream, neither of us knew what we wanted sexually and we had a lot of accidents. But it was like riding a bicycle that gave more pleasure every ride. It was totally consensual. She had to talk to me for about 10 seconds to gain my interest. I did look her up some years later. I'd say 3 to 350, trailer park, 5 kids, many tattoos, and a double dose of skank. In 4th grade, I somehow ended up in a gifted program, Odyssey of the Mind. I'll be goddamned if I knew how our team of slackers made it to the state championships in Phoenix, Arizona, about 3 hours away. My mom wouldn't let me go alone. She had my just turned 21 years old cousin Joby the overnight chaperone. I was ecstatic. He was pretty cool, younger than all the parents, cussing and drinking out of his flask, all on the bus ride there. Well, we arrive at our hotel and get to sleep rather early, since we had a huge weekend ahead of us. I'm the last to go to sleep on the first night, in a room of 4 young cheesy smelling youths, and an adult chaperone. My cousin informs me that he is headed outside to smoke a cigarette. That was the last anyone saw of him until 15 minutes before our bus came back home 2 days later. Hungover and probably high as fuck, he waltzed onto the bus like nothing was wrong. Parents and teachers were asking where he was all day long. He was supposed to keep an eye on us and bailed to snort coke, smoke weed, get drunk as fuck, and more than likely, enjoy the company of questionable women. After asking him about it years later, he has no recollection of even going to Phoenix on a school trip. When I was maybe 7 or so, my grandpa decided that I was old enough to get the same gift that my uncle got when he was young. He bought me a Swiss Army knife, a real neat one with a bunch of attachments. I wasn't really allowed to use it for anything, of course, but I loved to show it off to anyone who came over. I'm sure you can see where this is going. TLDR scared my babysitter shitless by pulling a knife on her. I was babysitting for a friend of my parents. They had 2 daughters around 6 and 8 years old. Before they left, they said that the girls would want to sleep in the parents' room with the TV and that I could let them pick a movie to fall asleep to. They had a massive DVD collection, but the girls happened to choose one of maybe 5 VHS tapes they owned. Obviously their parents hadn't thought about that and forgot to take the chicks with dicks tape out of the VCR. I guess I was around 17 and babysitting for extra cash. I was putting the two older kids, boy 9, girl 7, to bed when the girl starts talking to me. Being that she was a child, I wasn't really listening, but despite this my brain started to assimilate and organize her garbled speech. Turned out that she was giving me a pretty detailed account of how and when she masturbated. I was aware at this moment of two things. The first and most obvious was that I had just unwittingly listened to what amounted to a pedo's chat line. Second was that anything I said next might fuck this kid up permanently. So I just said, well, everyone does it. Good night. TLDR babysat a little wanker.